to our city council work session. It's 5:30 on February 1st. So watch Groundhog tomorrow. Like to get underway today. Could I ask if somebody would like to lead us in a Pledge of Allegiance?
I can. Please stand.
Please repeat the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Would somebody be willing to offer an invocation?
Mayor, I have a thought.
That will do.
The one who plants trees knowing that he will never sit in their shade has at least started to understand the meaning of life.
Thank you, Councilman Adcock and Councilman Meekum. We're ready, I believe, to get underway tonight. Is Aaron going to be in to take notes, or are you going to do that tonight?
And we do have it videoed, so we can move forward.
Okay. Pardon me. One thing I would like to do is excuse Council Member Montoya, as she's not feeling well this night, and we have a full quorum. We're moving on, so hope she gets better. Why don't we take just 1 minute while she gets back, or while Dennis gets back? Is he going to do it?
Yes, he's going to take care of the video.
Okay, that'll do. Discussion item 1 tonight is pre-budget planning session discussion. And what we were trying to do with this, and especially as Ben and I reviewed some of these things, is give us an idea of the way in which we need to look at the budget process, everything that we have to go through, starting with our retreats that begin next week. So there's a lot of time that we have to put in, a lot of forethought. A couple of you have gone through this process, so there's nothing brand new here other than a smiling face or two. But our intent is to do some education through this process tonight and get some thoughts on where we want to go. If there are things that are brought up in this PowerPoint presentation that you just want to discuss for a minute, let's go ahead and do it. Especially, if something just hits you. When we start next Friday in the retreat, we want to be able to just get right down to business, because there are so many things over those next 2 days that we have to really dig into. So, Ben, why don't we just take off and jump into it?
Sounds great. Thank you, Mayor. So that is exactly right. We want to be as efficient with your time as possible. And on Friday evening, we anticipate that the department directors will all present their needs and their concerns from their point of view. Of course, you look at things and balance it from department to department. So it's good to hear the perspective and have the input directly from those who are on our front lines. And then it's important also to prioritize all the different projects that we have. And what we thought to make your time as efficient as possible is to review the projects that are currently underway, answer any questions that you have regarding those projects, so you know the status, where things stand, and you recognize that a certain amount of capacity is already obligated as far as resources for the projects that we have underway. And to give you a little bit of background, there's really with any kind of project. So we're going to be talking about things individually. In the budget planning session, we will talk more about the personnel needs and more about the vehicles and equipment needs. Tonight, we're really focusing on that third area, which is the capital projects. And with any project, there really is that project triangle that you have. And it's a three-legged, no, not a stool, a three-legged aspect of a project where if any one side gives, it kind of has an effect on the other two. So, for example, we're dealing with COVID right now, and with COVID, there's unknown costs. And with costs, that can make things kind of go out of skew. And for us, that has had an effect on the timeline for the new city hall, for example. And so whether you have scope or time or cost, that affects that triangle. And then we have resources that really tie to it that have an effect based on that project triangle. So the first thing is scope. Scope of any project is what do you want to accomplish? And sometimes scope is broken down into phases because we can only accomplish so much within a certain span of time. Time is the duration of a project we're anticipated, and the longer the time stretches out, typically that affects the costs because we have more time involved in trying to manage that project. And then the costs themselves. We have limited resources, and we're blessed with being trustees of the public resources, and we want to safeguard those precious dollars and make sure that we're making the very best use of those. And that's why you see sometimes that the city council has taken action even before, let's say, we closed on the bond for the irrigation tank. We purchased the pipe in advance so that we had that pipe coming at a lower cost because we knew prices were going to increase in the near future. So we do everything we can to try to manage those three parts of that triangle: scope, time, and cost. That also then leads us to what are our resources? Cost is really a component of resources, but it's also a component of time. We have a limited amount of staff, and we could take on anything, any project with a large enough staff, but we need to safeguard the public trust and staff up accordingly and not overstaff, because you never know. There's always fluctuations in the market, and we don't want to be overstaffed. But that leads us to another aspect, which is the risks of any project. For example, we got into the new city hall, and getting into the new city hall, price started skyrocketing with COVID. And so there are certain risks that you take on with contingency and whatnot to ensure that that quality of the project is there, because in order to mitigate risks, it does affect the overall quality. So that's the 6 aspects of project management. And it's important to note that we work as a team, and I say team because all of us have our lanes, all of us are looking at things differently to try to ensure that we maintain that balance between scope, costs, and time. A good example of this is the project that we're taking on for phase 2 of the Harvest View Sports Complex. We were trying to get that work done within a very limited scope of time. We were trying to do it in between 2 different seasons, spring and fall season, and we had a limited time when other contractors were very, very busy. And so the first time we put that out to bid, the costs were outrageous. So much so that we retracted the bid completely and decided to make it a wintertime project. Well, that has a negative impact on the residents from the fact that they had an anticipation that they were going to get their parking lot or their pickleball courts or whatnot that they anticipated. And instead of getting them in the fall, they're going to get them in the springtime. But that saved us a dramatic amount of cost because contractors were more hungry in the wintertime. We were able to get better bidding and save the overall taxpayer resources. So it's important to note that that scope can fluctuate based on the cost and the time. And if we need to try to manage projects, sometimes one of those 3 aspects of that triangle slide. And that's because of limited resources. The definition of limited resources is a restricted amount of inputs required by a business, or in this case, a city or an economy, such as a motivated staff, your labor, finances, your capital, and your raw materials, your land. So those limited resources make it challenging, and so oftentimes you see some of our projects phased for that very reason, so we can accomplish what we can accomplish within that span, save up for the next project, and then take it on. And yet each of our council members, especially having 3 newly elected council members, come in with your own thoughts and your own ideas of how the city should progress, where our deficiencies are, where we could make improvements. And clearly every organization can improve, and we can improve as well. And just because the previous council had a direction over here doesn't mean that we can't pivot and go down a new direction, and that's just fine. We're happy to do so. We work at the pleasure, and we want to serve our elected leaders who are serving your constituents. So, but with that said, we can only do so much. We only have so much staff, especially in this building. When we go to the next building, we'll have the ability to expand a little bit, but we only have so much staff to be able to take on projects. And not all projects compete with each other. For example, a project in planning may not involve public works at all, but a new construction of a park aspect may be able to be done concurrently. And of course, I've already mentioned that we have limited resources. And it's, the council is very reluctant, at least councils of the past have been very reluctant to raise those resources by increasing taxes or anything like that, unless there is a proven need for those. And then the aspect of how do you grow them without impacting the residents, and that's by keeping local dollars local, by growing your economy. So that's kind of the basis and the background of the whole thing. So what are our current projects, and really how are they eating up our capacity? And you're going to see that little bucket glass or whatever start filling up as we have projects. So as I'm going through each of these projects, please ask the questions that you want to ask. Dive in, don't hesitate to interrupt or anything like that. The new City Hall is under construction. Things are moving forward and progressing very well. The project is fully funded now. Its anticipated completion date is December of this year. The footings of the foundation are poured, and they're pouring the walls right now. And they're also doing the underground work for all the utilities that are going to be coming into that facility. We've been working to value engineer it to be able to make sure we can afford that whole building, and trying to anticipate and take care of some of the fluctuations of costs that have come in. But it's going to be a beautiful building. When I say it's fully funded, what that means is that we are fully funded with the main offices on the first floor, the main offices on the second floor, which will hold community development, the mayor's office, legal and finance in the future. The basement is fully funded for an emergency operations center, an employee break area, and restrooms, and some offices in the basement. And the entire south wing is fully funded. The main floor is going to be a multi-purpose area, and that's going to take care of the needs of our seniors, but also rentable to the community for various events and whatnot, parties and city functions. In the basement, there will be several classrooms, and those in offices that will be utilized by our community services department. So all of that aspect is fully funded, and the entire west wing is a shell. There's really nothing in it at all. And what we're working on right now, and that's something that Dennis is working on, is trying to secure funding from benefactors, and we'll be making overtures not only to philanthropic groups but to our own residents to make contributions and have their name on the wall at various levels, and maybe have naming rights for rooms and all that type of thing to try to make that a future library. In anticipation of moving the library over into that building, and then having the library that could be used for whatever the council deems appropriate for the library, but such things as a small performance hall or art gallery, has great acoustics. It could be even used for parts of the museum or whatnot. So lots of potential future there. Some concurrent projects that we're working on is the removal of the Hyatt home to help facilitate the new City Hall. The Hyatt home is close enough to the edge of the new City Hall that it's actually starting to slough off into the area that they've excavated to pour the footings. And so getting rid of that home more quickly than anticipated is created a little bit of pressure for us. We were looking at potentially relocating that home, but the cost benefit, how much we would actually get versus the impacts on the project itself are not high enough, and we've talked to some of the people who are interested in it, and they're not prepared to move it off in a quick way, and it really may not save a lot of money for them. So we are actually looking at demoing that right now, and so we just completed our asbestos report so that we can do that demo. We may be doing some fire department training in there, no actual fires, but some smoke training and whatnot. And then having our crews go in and demo that so we can make it so that entire project area is shored up. So that's a project that we're going to be taking on internal, separate from what the contractor's doing. I've already mentioned that Dennis and John Bradley and Jennifer Wagner, our librarian, are doing some work to try to acquire funding for the library. It's our hope, we don't know, but it's our hope that if we received enough funding up front, that we could do it as a change order to this project. And if we don't, we have space that we could expand into in the future as well. So there's no downside on that. Other spin-off projects that will come in the future would be the FF&E. That's all your desks and chairs and televisions and technology and everything else that we need to have fill that room, those rooms within that facility. We anticipate that project would be in January of 2023. So something that'll hit next year's budget. Relocation of the offices. So anticipated time frame is February of moving everybody down there. And when we do that, what we're anticipating here is taking everybody out of the administrative side of this building and moving all the desks, chairs, and furniture as a different project, ripping the carpet out that's starting to deteriorate and repainting, moving all those desk chairs back, then moving our police officers and firefighters over, repainting, recarpeting everything on the other side, and spreading out so that they have the room to expand in the future. So that'll be a complete remodel. That's a project that wasn't listed, but is something we're anticipating, and part of that we would be re-asphalting this parking lot as well, and that has a drainage issue here.
I'm just thinking about doing all that moving of furniture in February next year.
Yeah.
February this year, we're working on the budget. February next year, we might be doing the same thing.
Yep.
Not the best time.
Well, and with winter, it may not be the best time, but these are best anticipated dates with COVID in mind, recognizing that labor is very difficult, sometimes supplies are very difficult, and so the timeline is the weakest of the three in the triangle of this project.
Just something to consider.
Yep.
Just
And we would also be relocating the seniors into this building at the same time.
How much do you anticipate that FF&E costing?
It could be somewhere, we're going to need to get bids and quotes and whatnot, but it could be as much as $500,000. Mm-hmm. Yep. Give or take,
Right.
up or down. But we're not anticipating taking any of the desks or chairs because they all match the decor of this building, and
Right.
and the fire and police are going to need them to be able to continue to expand into. So, and then the last thing is this is now a great feature for that entire block, and we've talked about planning for that block, and that's part of the Parks and Trails Master Plan, is planning for the expansion, whether it has a meandering water feature for kids to play in, or an amphitheater in there, or whatever we might do. That's anticipated as well as other things like the demo of the junior high building and eventual restoration of the museum. Every single one of those potential phases are something a council will need to determine at the appropriate time. But just options. Any other questions on the new City Hall? Okay. The next big project that we're working on right now is this Summit Ridge Irrigation Tank and Booster Station. This project is also fully funded. It was $11.2 million bond, Mayor. He had that question earlier today. 11.2.
11.2?
Mm-hmm. And that is to fund the tank. It also did what's called a refund or refinance of the old PI debt, and made this entire project possible, lowering interest rates and whatnot. This is all one project, but we have two components of the project that we're trying to get on different timelines. Getting the tank up and operational is really critical for us, and we're trying to do that by the hottest point of the year, which is July 24th. That tank can be filled with our current piping and our current resources and give us the storage and the capacity we need to take care of our summer needs this year. But full completion of the project includes the upwards of 1 mile to 2 miles of pipe and 3 miles of pipe, and he doubles everything. I said 1.5 miles, so. And the booster pump station that would be able to bring the irrigation water to this tank. And so we're looking at that full completion of the project by September 2022. As I mentioned, it's fully funded. And I'm putting down here just so you have some concept of about how much time it takes. So right now our engineering staff, and I get pulled in from time to time, of about 5 hours per week on average. Sometimes there's weeks when it's higher, sometimes there's weeks when it's lower. And with the city hall, I said about 10 hours per week. Again, there's times when we're doing a heck of a lot of design, and then it's been slow for a period. Now we're starting construction, and we're meeting every other week. We'll probably get to the point where we're meeting every week. Thoughts, concerns, questions on the tank? Great. The next big project, and all these are multi-million-dollar projects. This is a lot to manage with everything that's going on, is the Harvest View Sports Complex Phase 2. This is adding in over 400 parking spaces, 8 pickleball courts, the lighting, the concession stands / bathrooms, landscaping, and actually making it more ADA accessible with parking and concrete walkways and the whole bit. This is something that the public has been anticipating for quite some time to make it a better facility overall for those patrons using this facility.
So Ben, this is our council members. This is an example of a phased project. We didn't put in the paved parking lot back when we did the soccer fields because the soccer fields was the main component of it, and we really didn't know what we were going to do, whether it was going to be baseball or pickleball or whatever, right? So there was a reason why we didn't put that parking lot in, but this is an example of a phased project, how we continue to build in phases.
Exactly, and you can see some of these darker areas for future baseball fields and whatnot as that continues to expand out to the north. This takes us right now about 5 hours per week. It fluctuates. That time is going to increase as it gets warmer and the construction really is kicking off. We're doing a lot of the underground work right now. Thoughts, concerns, excitement?
Looks great.
Okay. This is a much smaller project, but a project that is also taking time. And the reason that this is fairly time intensive is because it is a federally funded project. It's through the Community Development Block Grant Program. But this is putting in curb and storm drainage facilities along the first block of our core area of town, which is Center Street to First North. Center Street from Main to First North. This is anticipated to be completed in the fall of 2022. If the city does choose, we could grow this project a little bit by adding in sidewalk, but that would be on our dime to be able to do that. And we would likely do that after the project's completed so we don't commingle federal funds, which are more expensive than local dollar funds. Right now it's taking about 5 hours a week, but again, that fluctuates. The status is that it's being designed right now by JUB. We will be going through a bidding process, and that bidding process is an advertisement. It's a pre-bid mandatory meeting where they go out on site and meet with all the potential bidders, and then we select one, and so they have to go through notice to proceed and then manage the construction as it goes forward, and then close out and dot all the I's, cross out all the T's. Because it is federally funded, we need to make sure that this is managed extremely well from a grant perspective for audit purposes. Any thoughts on this? So the potential here is that we may bring it to you for your consideration for possible addition of sidewalk at a later date. Highland Drive Canyon Road is a current project. It feels like the project's complete because the road's open and the residents are happily using that road and taking the pressure off of 9th South, which we've been trying to work on for many, many years. However, there is still work that's out there that needs to be completed, such as the surface work, concrete, fencing, trail, and the finished landscaping. That's going to really complete the effort out there. We anticipate that all of that will be completed by July of 2022. Again, it's fully funded, and we think there's about 60 hours of work remaining to do all the inspections and eventual project closeout of all the documents. Now, any questions on this? And I'll talk about a spin-off project on this one. And it's not really a project, but it's just an impact. No good deed goes unpunished, and so putting in this intersection and the sidewalk to Orchard Hills Elementary is a great benefit to the residents out there. But it does make it so that you do now have a safe walking route to school. And that safe walking route to school means that the school district won't be busing those students out there in Foothill, at least to a certain radius, to Orchard Hills. And so there's some talk there about the PTA maybe, or a combination of the city looking at crossing guards. We don't provide crossing guards at intersections that are controlled like this with stop signs on all sides, because it's really expensive to get a crossing guard, and it's really a hard position to fill, because you come in the morning, you leave for a while, you come back at lunch, you leave for a while, come back in the afternoon, leave for a while. It's a really hard one to staff. And so volunteers through the PTA might be very helpful in this given area. But we know that the school's anticipating not busing next year. The next project, Cemetery Phase 2 upgrade. So a few years ago, the council members, Dave and Lynn, will recall that Wade and Jason presented the idea of 4 different options for improving the cemetery, and with the relocation of our soccer use out to the new soccer fields and not using the cemetery, it allows us to continue to expand that. We did the first phase last year, which was putting in additional roads and opening up an additional section. This phase 2 that's funded this current year brings in an access from Center Street to the monument area and continues the development on that end. It may or may not include some work on the corner. The city did acquire that parcel where we could relocate some of our maintenance facilities. That's a potential spin-off project, because we have property that could have a little shop and some of those concrete bunkers where you could put materials out there, and yet we'd want to put it behind a screen fence so that we don't create an eyesore for our neighbors out there, because it's kind of mid-block. And so there's a potential spin-off project there. That would allow, if we do kick off some sort of a spin-off project, it would allow us to put a more decorative corner instead of our piles of dirt and the trees that are right there on the north western corner of the cemetery today. That's about 40 hours of engineering time and about 200 hours of our public works time, all done internally. What's budgeted for is all the materials. Any questions on that? Planning. So we've got a lot of different plans that are going on, and this doesn't necessarily, these are all the ones that the city has initiated. So we just closed out the one with the transit, South Utah County Transit, and the work that we've been performing there with all the other cities in unison, trying to study the transportation needs of our area. We have the active transportation plan. That's taking about 2 hours a week on average and is anticipated to be closed out in April. We have the general plan process, and that's taking about 10 hours a week right now to gather all the information. It's all being drafted and written and revised. We're going to have joint meetings with the Planning Commission fairly soon with regard to the general plan. That for sure we're looking at as a may come a little earlier, 2022 completion. The Parks Trails Master Plan is about 5 hours a week right now, and that is anticipated to be completed in summer of 2022. We are trying to incorporate the new Prospector View Park into that, as well as all of the different new parks that we're considering. And so this is a little bit more intensive update than just a normal standard update. And then now that we brought the next train of the sewer treatment plant online and expanded the capacity of the plant, that master plan is actively being updated. That's taking about 5 to 10 hours a week. And that's anticipated to be completed in 2022. Now, as we have applications for things like large annexations, you'll also see that developers are responsible to update those portions of the plan for their specific developments. We do a holistic view, but they get down to the granular level and the modeling of each given area and do the pipe support that area and what upgrades would be needed. And reviewing all of those developer-initiated master plans across the board is something that really falls on engineering as well and planning.
So just a correction, the sewer master plan has not taken place yet. It is budgeted for this year, but we'll be bringing a contract award to you shortly for that to try and get that going, but it is budgeted this year. It's not currently underway. Want to correct that?
Thank you. Thank you very much. And then also I've got the picture of how things kind of spike. They hit at different times. We're not doing everything at once. There's different growth spurts, if you will, in each phase of each project. And some are hitting earlier, some are slower duration, some are hitting later on. So that's the methodology there in that thought process. Oh, so the spinoff with any master plan, and I'm sorry, I make that assumption, and I shouldn't make that assumption. Anytime we do a master plan update, there's also what's called an impact fee facility plan and an impact fee analysis. So an impact fee facility plan takes the overall master plan and carves it down to projects that would be completed within a 6-year horizon. And that then carves it down to a financial analysis of what we can charge for impact fees, because we don't want to undercharge development. Development should pay for itself, so it's not burdening our residents. But we can't overcharge and make a profit, if you will, off new development coming in and trying to raise the level of service across the board for all of our parks or whatever. That has to be proportionately shared by our existing residents. And so that impact fee analysis has to be completed pursuant to state code, so that all that can be incorporated and you can charge the appropriate fees for our given city. It's hard to compare city to city because everybody's water system or sewer systems are different. It's also important to note that when you pass the master plan and the impact fee facility plan, initiating the impact fee analysis, that establishes what the council potentially could charge for an impact fee. 90 days later is when you actually enact it. And so we actually reach out to the Home Builders Association in that process to have them have the opportunity to look at our plans, question, poke holes or whatever, so that we can have a very solid plan that's supported for us internally, also supported by the development community, so we don't have any litigation or anything like that. If you're too far out, you can become the poster child of those who might be in opposition. So we want to make sure we're right in line and we're following state code.
To go along with that also, those master plans typically bring about future projects as well. So they will identify what's needed in the next few years, et cetera, et cetera. But Ben will talk about that here in a minute.
I will, but I'm glad you brought that up because that led me to something else. So one of the things that we typically do in a budget planning session is we take a heck of a lot of time to look at all the different parks and rank those parks. We budget the impact fees that could be spent in a given year, and then we rank those out, and then the council ultimately determines on when to pull the trigger for a given project like Harvest View or new parks that might be added to it. To save time in this budget planning session, what we're anticipating is budgeting the full amount of impact fees that we would collect in the given year for parks, but not allocate at this time what those are prioritized towards. Because we have a 90-day period in between the master plan completion and when the new impact fees come, that the council could spend some time during work meetings at that point, once we have the new information on all the different parks that are in that are in the new plan, for you to go and prioritize them at that point when you have full information, not limited information. So, and that'll save some time on the retreat and give you time to be able to make better use of your prioritization in other areas. Current initiatives, and I say initiatives because they're not technically projects yet where we have construction going on, but they are taking a significant amount of staff time and dollars when it comes to engineering and design review, both by community development and by engineering. In this particular case, the first two are the debris basins that engineering and our assistant city manager has been working on significantly. There's really two different projects that we're looking at here. The first is the county debris basin. This is the upgrade to the debris basin at the mouth of the canyon. And right now we're spending about 2 hours a week, which fluctuates. This design is anticipated to be completed not until December 2023. It's an 18-month design. And the construction would be in 24, 25 time frame, pending funding. So NRCS provides 65% of the funding. It's anticipated that the state would step in with a significant amount and leave the remainder to be paid for by the county and the city shared, which ultimately is like 2.5% to the city each to the city and to the. But it's a expensive project, so even 2.5% is a pretty significant hit to our budgets. But we'll see, because with infrastructure dollars coming to the state, maybe the state steps in with a little bit more, and it takes that burden off us as well. That project had been going on for quite some time, and it's going to actually raise the edge of the dam, that's the debris basin that's there, by about 18 feet. 13 feet. 13 feet all the way around, and take care of the channel and everything that's taking care of that aspect of that particular watershed. But there's additional watersheds all along the east bench that have potential flooding that can hit our community, and so Norman's been working quite hard at trying to work with NRCS on the additional debris basins, upwards of 5 additional debris basins, and that's taking about 2 to 4 hours per week. That design is moving forward right now, and where it's really a city project that we're moving forward with, it goes on a quicker timeline. So November 2022 is when we anticipate the design to be complete, and the construction dollars to be coming in 23-24 timeframe. The one big aspect of this project that's going to hit this budget this year is land acquisition, and we don't even know how to anticipate what that is. They estimated it at about $3 million of land acquisition, but we don't know until the design's complete how much acreage is needed and how much would be outright purchase or negotiated through moving of development rights or whatever. But the more we can limit that cost, the less of a burden on our residents. Anything on that?
No, just on that one, the final design and the construction pending cost is 100% funded by the NRCS $9.1 million that we got allocated in late 2020. But again, that depends on costs. Yeah. So
we definitely appreciate our congressional delegation and their support on that project as well. Design engineering is moving forward right now for the widening of our Main Street, and this continues the widening from the 3rd East area all the way going west through our entire community. That's phase 4 and phase 5 of the widening. We were given allocations of funding that would come in the 2023 and 2025 time frame. 22 and 24 time frame for each of those phases. We're trying to consolidate that both in its engineering but also in its construction, and we anticipate it would be more of a 23-24 time frame as far as construction is concerned. That design is fully funded and it's moving forward with JUB right now. That's taking about 10 hours a week. I know that Norman and John walked Main Street yesterday in very cold weather to try to help facilitate that design. Once the design is complete, then we're going to be working with the property owners on there along that way, and any impacts that they may have as we move power or whatever else that might need to be done out there. But we will also be responsible for a small portion of match to that project, which is 6.77%, in addition to if the city wants to add decorative features, such as a continuation of the lighting and the boxes and whatnot. It seems like last time we did that was on our dime. And so we'll have to consider that and perpetuating the flowers that go down. So that's the status of the initiative for design and engineering on Main Street. Our thought and our desire was if we can get all the engineering taken care of up front, that allows us to, instead of having 2 mobilizations, 2 projects, 2 impacts on the residents, 2 construction projects over a couple of different years, to consolidate it, less impact, 1 mobilization, save costs, and make it less impactful on our residents. Okay. Future committed projects. These are ones that are not on the current horizon, but in future years for which we have already tied ourselves to. And that is the actual construction of phase 4 and phase 5. That's the 6.67% or 7.7% match, along with any aesthetics. And the NRCS debrivation construction, and that's going to be the land acquisition. So just so we know those are in the horizon. But I know you also have ideas and desires and whatnot, things that you want to accomplish in the future. And we need to get those things into the pipeline. And we also need to recognize that there are a lot of them, a lot of different ideas that pop up, from junior high school demolition to rerouting frontage roads to regional Summit Creek irrigation pond, remodeling the public safety building, transfer stations, Center Street completion on the north end, skate parks. There's just so many projects we could do. We just need to understand in what order that you want us to do them, and how fast those come in, and how impactful those can be on the residents. Because we can do anything, we just can't do everything, and we can't do it well. And mixed amongst all the projects are all the things that come in from the development community, and they are coming in faster and faster as the growth wave is hitting us. And we have certain time frames. And hey, did you see that on Facebook? Squirrel. Okay, that's now the highest priority, right? So we understand that anything that happens to be today's flavor of the day can automatically change your perspective, and then that changes our perspective. Because you have to understand, our staff, when you guys even just look at something, want to jump. They want to serve. They want to do good things. They want to help and support. And so it takes the maturity of our elected leaders to recognize, hey, we've got a course. We need to stay the course. And I remember this. I couldn't find the video, but I remember this video of a husband that's got a honey-do list on a Saturday, and he gets up and he goes to get a screwdriver to fix the handle on a door, and on the way he notices that the banister is loose, and so he has to go get a hammer to go work on that, and then he notices that there's a light bulb out, and then he goes, by the time it's all said and done, he spent the whole day walking around the house and nothing got done. And that's how it is. We often find ourselves, we are our own worst enemies, going different directions and not staying focused on completing what you would have us complete. And it's because we only have so much capacity without expanding the capacity by raising taxes, which we don't want to do. And so because of those demands and those pulls of resources, it can be a real challenge for us. And so we just want to work as a team and supporting you as you support the residents and the demands from the residents. And it comes right back to that quote, we can do anything. And I'm confident our staff is exceptional. We really can do anything, but we can't do everything. And if we try, we can't do it well, right? And so you are the elected leaders. We are the staff. You set the goals and the priorities to establish, and we accomplish them. True success can be found when all the pistons are firing in a common direction with a common purpose. We're your car, and you guys are the drivers. And so we need, you got to tell us where to go. But you have to understand that if you have 6 different people pulling on the wheel, we can sure make a funny ride. And you ask it, what's the most important part of the car? My brother I shared the story once before. My brother was driving down the road one day. It's his birthday today, by the way. He's driving down the road in Idaho one day. He was going to Rick's, and all of a sudden he's going through an intersection. He slams on his brakes, and he comes to a stop right in the middle of the intersection. And everybody's honking at him and telling him, get out of my way and whatnot. He opens up his window and holds up his steering wheel. It fell off on this junker of a car that he had. At that given moment, the most important part of that car was the steering wheel. But tomorrow it might be the engine, and the next day it might be the tires, and the next day it might be the brakes, right? And so you've got a fire department, and you've got a police department, and you've got a community development and an engineering. And if you ask any given department what's the most important thing, they're going to tell you it's this right here. And you as council members have to do this and say, what is the balance? What's most important for my community? You provide us the focus in the direction and set that establishment for us moving forward. And establishing priorities for staffing levels, for vehicles and equipment, and for the capital projects that we're going to be taking on. With that, do you have any questions?
You want specific budget questions for next weekend, right?
Sure. Mhm.
Yeah, that's what I
But if there's anything on the current projects, you're welcome. I just want to say thank you to the staff. They do a fantastic job.
They do. So we've just saved 45 minutes out of next week, and so we'll add another hour to it. When we
Well,
get
that's okay,
next week.
right.
That's the way I look at it, so.
I do have a comment or a question, I guess.
Sure.
So, and I understood all of that, and it was great. The question is with anticipated money coming from the federal government to the state, and I don't know how far it'll ever trickle down or if it ever gets here. Is there any chance that there's money out there for some of this? Because like the land acquisition, for instance, to me, that's a big one. But is there any more? Have we exhausted all of the possibilities of trying to find money for that?
So you have asked the perfect question, which is the perfect lead into the next agenda item.
Okay.
That's what I was thinking. And that's really good because it ties back. It's discussing this ARPA funding and the Lincoln Hill consulting agreement. Did you read that in your packet? And you probably were asking yourself why all of that was coming about. And it's really forward-looking with opportunities that are sitting before us. And it is monies that the state is holding because of COVID relief that was also sent to the county, and the county has 120 million, and the state has all these millions. And they were tied to things like fiber optics, water, and sewer. And once you do that, the only way that you can secure any of those is at least come up with one of those three or all three of those methods where you can tie those kind of funds in. And our staff has been working feverishly with the county trying to say, look, you're holding $120 million. We need to do that. We've just bonded for $11.2 million to take care of a water need for our PI system to relieve the culinary problems that we have out at Summit Ridge. A great way to look at this. And one of the things that grabbed us by the short hairs behind our neck was, how are we going to handle it, try to receive some of these funds, relieve ourselves of even the amount that we've secured through, I'm trying to think of the name for the taxes. It wasn't the bond. Sorry, take taxes out of that. The bond. And which then can maybe relieve us of a little pressure that we're looking at. We can either pay a bond off, or we could utilize some of those funds we've already bonded for to take care of one more thing that we could see on the horizon. And that's where the secret's going to be with all of this that's going on with our new budget year, a look at this, more than anything, getting into Lincoln Hill and utilizing them as in this consulting agreement. So as the staff has been working with the county has finally agreed to meet our 1.5 million, and it goes a little deeper than that, and I may screw this up a little bit. So let me screw it up a little bit. But the state has those same kind of funds. However, the county's not going to lose or release anything unless we have a consulting agreement with Lincoln Hill, who are lobbyists, who are able to handle ways in which we can get this money. And the county said, you do that, you can get there. And if you look at what has gone on, there are cities up north that were rated way below where we were on the scale to get these kind of funds. I think we were, a 16 or something?
Yes.
And I won't say the city's name, but they're north of us a little ways. They were 300 down the line. And because they were able to pull in Lincoln Hill through this consulting agreement, they were able to get funding at a great level, but it put us right out. We didn't get any. Aaron recognized this. Aaron went to bat, and he has been able to get him to the point to where the county has said, you pull Lincoln Hill on here, we'll be able to match it.
Wow.
Okay? That's all of a sudden taking that big bunch of money that we're going to have to come up with and taking a big hit with it. Well, we can go one step further with Lincoln Hill and go to the state money. And if we could get that, we could reduce this by millions. And I think it's very forward-looking. This is what we have to do to play this game, but it's going to benefit the citizens of Santaquin 100%. And thankfully, we've got a staff that's looking at all of these things. Aaron put a lot of time into this, and I'm glad we're where we're at. And as I read down through the proposal that we have to approve today to move forward with it, the resolution, I think it's a good way to go. Certainly we need to discuss it. We jump on this, we're going to be able to free up some funds, and we maybe could be freeing up something to the tune of about 5 million, 4.5 million, if we do it right. So that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Did I miss anything, Ben?
So just
No, I screwed it up.
No,
That's
no,
what it
you
was.
did great. You did great, and everything you said, Aaron, taking the leadership on this, and we appreciate that all the way through. So it really is a game, and that's the issue we have here. Really, what has happened is we've applied for state funds. We got denied. We were 16th, and other projects all the way into the 300 level got approved. We went to the county.
Can I share my screen just to demonstrate?
We only have just a couple minutes, so if it's okay, we've got
I'd like to see it.
for 1.5 million that we're still seeking from the state. That'll be matched by 3 million from the county, if in fact it's approved by the state. But in order to make that approved by the state, the county is saying, look, we're not going to put this money in unless you use our lobbyist firm. So there's no guarantees, but this lobbyist firm was funded on every project that they used. Lincoln Shirts, if you recall, if you've been a past council member or for any duration of time, he is the previous Cameron Deal of the Utah League of Seasoned Towns, so he has a lot of influence on the Hill, and has done a really good job. That tied to the fact that we can also use them for other potential funding sources for transportation, like trying to get infrastructure dollars into Santaquin to redo the interchange. No promises, no funding right now, but it's all kind of out there. The big unknown right now is that the federal government is relaxing its rules on the use of those funds. That means that the county, which historically could only use those funds for water, sewer, and broadband, now can use it for revenue loss prevention, and so they can allocate monies into their sheriff's department and whatnot. So they've made this commitment right now, but we're just a little bit worried that those funds can start to be pulled off for other purposes. We just really want to make sure that we secure that, have the contracts in place to make it go forward. And there's one more point that I'm trying to remember, and anyway.
Well,
The other thing, it goes back to the philosophical. So that's the pragmatic. In order to play the rules of the game, this is how you play, and this is how we move forward. The philosophical side of it all, and this is a different aspect altogether, is it a good thing? Well, it's a good thing because we're bringing in money to Santaquin that's Santaquin dollars from our own taxpayers and whatnot, and we're keeping it local, so that's great. But we're using potentially, for example, ARPA funds coming into the city are offset by cost increases to projects like our city hall that are outpacing the grant monies that we're actually receiving. So from a bigger philosophical standpoint, again, it's a movement of a shell game type of thing, because inflation is hitting us just as hard as, if not harder than the grant money's coming in. So we have to play by the rules of the game to help offset those costs.
But if we do nothing, we just fall behind,
We
rather
fall
than
behind
at
and the other
least play the
cities
shell
get
game.
that money. Yep.
And utilization of this consulting group will allow us for a full year to use them on other projects as well. So it's not like a one-shot deal, it's all year long, and we will get our money's worth by far, I'm sure.
And if any of you've worked with Lincoln in the past, I have confidence in him, just like I had confidence in Cameron and Justin and other members of the league. He's built relationships for over a long period of time, and I think would represent us well.
Any other questions? We've only got about 3 minutes. We've got a list of things that we will be going through today. I think it's fairly straightforward meeting. Is there any issue that you want to discuss that you may have a question on in regards to what is on the agenda? So we should be good to move. I did want to ask, we're going to make some changes to previous minutes that was brought up last time by Councilman Adcock.
And those are on the agenda.
Okay,
Part
and
of the
that
consent.
is the right date? I thought it was December.
It was the January 4th regular meeting.
It was
minutes.
January.
All right,
4th.
I thought it was the one in December for some reason. I'm getting old.
As far as the Tanner annexation, we talked about that during your last meeting. The consulting agreement we just talked about. Fire department's here to talk about their budget request. The library, I just wanted to let you know our staff got on that project a little faster than anticipated, and that work is actually complete. So we would look for a ratification of the budget allocation request rather than an approval. Our public works director was stuck out of the country for a time, and they surprised him by having it done more quickly than anticipated. So we can't complain that our staff is
Let's take it out of Jason's salary then.
so.
He's been given a pretty hard time about that
I'll bet he
anyway.
has, and I can add to it.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Mayor,
yeah.
I'd like to see Aaron's screen if we can go over for a minute or two.
We got 2 minutes.
Aaron, can you throw that up?
Are you going to be able to read through that in 2 minutes?
I don't know. I thought it was a picture.
I was just gonna show one.
I always worry about the technology during a live broadcast to switch from computer to computer. That's all.
Right. We can send it to you. It just shows the rankings of all the projects that selection committee looked at and how we ranked relative to everybody else. We can send it to you so you can see it.
Okay.
That might be better. Are we still online with the Zoom? Okay. I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn from this work session.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.